Call a October meeting of Hudson Black River District Order. Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Is that all right? Was that all right? It's actually one of it.
Okay. Rick, you want roll call, please?
David Bergstresser.
Here.
Michael Astapan.
Here.
Albert Hayes.
Here.
Thomas Stover.
Excused.
Mark Finkel.
Here.
Michael Clark.
Here.
Robert Leslie.
Here.
Robert Fulton.
Here.
John Hudson.
Here.
Carol Wright.
Here.
Richard Ferrari. Here. Mr. Chairman?
Thank you. All right, I need a motion to adopt or revise or any revisions to the meeting agenda. Anything we need to add? It hasn't been very long since our last meeting. So.
I make that motion.
Okay, a motion, do I have a second?
A second.
Oh, no, you weren't here.
Yeah, that's fine.
Your turn.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second to accept the meeting agenda as is, as written. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? So moved. Anybody want to speak from the audience? Any guests? Speakers? You sure? Okay. Speak now or forever hold your peace. Is any now this executive sessions? I'd like to let's strike that from the agenda from now on because I've taken up a policy. If we need to go to executive session, we'll do it right there rather than schedule it.
Yep.
All right, so just strike that from the. Still nothing from the audience? Okay. Public comments? All right, I need approval of the board minutes from September 21st meeting.
I so move.
Okay.
Second.
All right, motion and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So moved. Rolling right along. The report of the executive director.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You will find my very short report on page 21. A lot more has actually happened in that short little synopsis would lead you to believe. Majority of my time and indeed the staff of the time of all senior staff for the last, however long it's been, 3 weeks since our last meeting, has really been focused around dealing and responding to and addressing comments from the 5 counties that are assessed in the Hudson River area apportionment. And if you remember briefly, those comments really centered around 3 main areas. One dealing with some duplicate properties that they had identified in assessment rolls for state and non-state, primarily non-state owned properties, as well as properties that were state but were included on the county side. Their second comment focused around the state highways. If you recall, our apportionment, our 2012 apportionment, identified 46.4 miles of state highway within the 100-year floodplain without, if the Great Sacandaga Lake did not exist, in the Hudson River, of course within the petition area. The counties felt that was not totally representative in that some of those roads were more than 2-lane highways, and we had assigned $1.5 million a mile as a replacement value to those state highways, and they essentially had asked for more detail. I myself have had numerous conversations with New York State Department of Transportation since then, and I expect to, I have preliminary numbers. I expect to have a complete tabulation of those 46.4 miles of state highway. That's centerline miles, if you measure down the yellow line or down the median, depending on what you have. and have a breakdown of lane miles. In other words, if you've got, just as an example, I'm sure everybody gets it, but if you got 50 miles of road and it's a 2-lane road, you've got 100 lane miles. I expect to have a complete tabulation of that. That will be much greater detail than what was presented at the September 21st grievance hearing. And so we'll address that,
Okay.
that their question or their concern of lack of detail in that manner. And the third point that the counties, the 5 counties in Maine, was the unit cost that we use for replacement of state-owned bridges. They presented some data that indicated that the replacement cost was considerably higher than what we had used. However, their data set, their sampling of costs were, that was relatively limited. It was 4 or 5 examples
Say 5. Yeah, 5.
to that, and those are, and while they are good data points to use to that, I am adding additional data to hopefully arrive at a more, I won't say, a more reasonable, more accurate number, and it's safe to say it might be somewhat higher than the $300 a square foot we used, but potentially somewhat under the $600 a square foot that they proposed. The chief engineer has really tackled the assessment roles, the state-owned properties versus all other properties within the floodplain, and to that end, maybe you could kind of speak to the process that you went through.
Certainly. I did go through for each municipality that we had, for each county, identified certain duplicates that existed and confirmed and made sure that we had appropriate separation for the identifying the state properties, checked and double checked for that, and have recalculated and or in the process of recalculating those values both for the state and the non-state properties. But it was basically just a thorough line-by-line review of probably 7,000 or 8,000
Right.
properties out of the 5 counties, looking for duplicates and looking for other ID tags that were used that might clearly be state properties, and then certainly looking into some of the those properties which the counties brought up, which they felt should be considered, and so I think we've got a pretty decent
Pretty good handle on it.
on that revision at this point. Yeah.
Rob, one of the points they made within that discussion of the properties was they made a specific point of the Port of Albany.
Yes.
Yeah. So did we get that certification or whatever from them?
We didn't, but I did take a look at the enabling statute. The Albany Port District Commission is clearly a state entity.
Okay.
So I have no problem with that.
And to add to that too, there were CDTA, Capital District Transportation Authority,
Oh, yeah.
which is also created out of state law. And so there were several properties, some of which even the counties didn't identify, that we identified too. And it's the same situation as the port properties.
Right.
Okay. So if we go to lane miles for the highways, does it break? We're going to break down the per mile value per lane.
Well, Mr. Chairman, it's another cut at it, another slice at it. You're looking at more precise data, or more. Let me say it this way: more representative data, because you actually define what those 46.5 miles of road really look like in terms of width. By using lane miles, what that allows you to do is, and assigning a value to a unit cost per lane mile, what it really does is it actually more accurately represents the value of that state road that's in that floodplain. So does it dramatically change the value that that we had originally assigned to the state highways within the floodplain? I don't expect it to, go up several orders of magnitude. It's likely that because there's approximately 1/3 of the 46.5 miles or so of state highway, 46.4 miles of state highway within the floodplain that we identified, or DOT identified, 1/3 of those were interstate, so there will be some increase. Again, depending on the unit cost that you assign per lane mile, because now you're looking at it from a different view. Rather than looking at an average budgetary figure to say a road costs this much per mile. Well, again, the question is it 2? Is it 4? Is it a one-lane gravel road like we come in on to here? And they all have different costs to build and maintain and replace. With the tabulation for lane miles of state highway within the 100-year without GSL floodplain of the Hudson, with that goes the necessity to look at replacement cost of state highway on a lane mile basis. I expect that we may see some increase, but right now, in a general sense, I don't see it being an order of magnitude or anything like that.
Okay. Here's the $1 million question. I'm still unclear of. Did we assign, when we looked at county infrastructure, did we assign a value to the county roads and that were inside the floodplain, or no? Or did we just lump that? I'm just wondering how that's going to affect that figure.
We did not.
Okay.
The roads and bridges that were tabulated were state owned.
Okay.
Those were, and the value of those were then extracted or deducted from the total cost.
But we didn't add anything into the assessment
On the county side of the ledger?
On the county side of the ledger for county roads?
For the county roads and bridges, no, we did not.
Okay.
And only because it's already represented by the value of the properties that were identified that are non-state.
Okay.
The basis for, by definition, as we entered this process, 2.5 years ago, was that the value of the properties in the floodplain and the proportion of county to total would be representative of all the benefit derived by everyone in those counties, those in and outside of the floodplain, the county roadways, the municipal roadways, any other structure, and anybody that had to use any infrastructure or cross the floodplain from outside of the floodplain, all benefited, and any of that benefit was represented by that dollar value of the market value of those properties. So it is in there, but it's not calculated directly the way we calculated for the state, for the purposes of removing and finding the chargeable to the state.
Okay.
And that's essentially because the appellate division, third department, basically blessed that methodology. However, asked us, with regard to the state, to specifically name or to specifically put a value to the state.
The state property that was within that.
Right.
Yes.
And they specified roads and bridges and mentioned them by name. So
Right.
Okay, so we had to pull those out.
Correct.
Give them a
and
value.
account for them, yes.
And then give them
Separately.
a value. Got it. Any other questions? Good.
And if I could continue, the other item that I have been dealing with, and not just me, the senior staff also, dealing with on the Hudson River area, dealing with the hydros that now also have the headwater benefit determination and final order in front of them that gives us until the end of October to either arrive at a settlement or have discussions of the settlement or have plans to arrive at a settlement or a method to do that by the end of this month. To that end, I have spoken with 4 of the biggest hydros in the area regarding the issue of the headwater benefits payments going forward, as well as, of course, the potential for refunds. And to the end that there's refunds, that remains to be seen, whether or not that's going to be necessary. But nevertheless, they're asking, and we've had to have those discussions.
Yeah, go ahead.
Mike?
Yeah.
Do you ever read on the hydros as far as, are they going to be in agreement with this, or are we going to end up in court, or you
That's that's a really good question.
just don't know if this?
No two are the same. Right now we are in court with 2 of them. And that one of them is Albany Engineering, and the other is Orlex. And clearly we're in court with them, and that issue's before the court. Now one is at the level of appeal. Right. I don't get the same sense. I get the sense again, it's just a sense at this point. But I sense the 3 others that I have spoken with are, if there's a way to avoid that, I think they might want to avoid that.
And I understand it can turn on a dime, There's possibility that it may not go.
Exactly. If things are absolutely not to one side or the other's liking, then that's how you wind up in court quickly. I don't get the sense that they've already thrown down the gauntlet and are ready to take it to that step. So they're, our position is we're waiting to see what comes of the 2 that are in court, and that will clearly dictate where we go with the remainder.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions? Got everything covered?
I also did want to mention, I don't know if our chief financial officer will, but we did, because I've got it in my report, we met with a loss control consultant of the state insurance fund, I believe, at the Saginaw field office, just part of a normal insurance the fact-finding mission to better define what our operations are and where operational risks might exist. In operations of dams and any other, however else you would define risk. So we did do that, and I just wanted to mention that to the board that did take place a week ago or so.
You're not going to throw in that the state insurance fund came and gave you a plaque for having been in.
There is that too. We've been
Been there for 80 years.
We did get a plaque.
You got your photo taken with 2 dignitaries from the state insurance fund.
We have a plaque for the wall, and it said how many years? 80 years?
80 years.
Don't be shy.
I haven't been there for all 80 years.
Okay.
You probably feel
I'm glad that's in the
The
record.
last 2 is.
Congratulations.
And that is my report, Mr. Chairman and board members. Please ask anything.
Biggest risk is politics, isn't it? But all right, thanks. All right, moving on. So we'll get into the contracts. The first one is the resolution to accept Kleinschmidt Associates revised updated proposal for engineering services. Mr. Fulton, would you like to?
Yes, I
embellish
will.
on
That is on page 22 and 23, I believe. Multiple pages, but starting on 22. This is actually a project, coming back to a project which was suspended. In October 2011, the board had accepted a proposal from Kleinschmidt Associates for engineering services for an independent consultant review and comment on the Stillwater Dam liquefaction and deformation analysis. That analysis was completed by Rizzo Associates in the prior year, and we had suspended work, Kleinschmidt's work on the review as independent consultant, which we're obligated to have him review that as a result of the FERC dam safety requirements. And so now, having gotten to the point where, and starting the new fiscal year, we reached back out to Kleinschmidt Associates, asked them to provide, or if they needed to, update their proposal, since it had been some time since they supplied it to us. And they did. The scope is a little changed, if at all, and they changed the fee from $9,400 to $9,700. And so we just bring it back to the board. The staff recommends that we accept the proposal, and we're just seeking authorization to form a contract for the $9,700, and to have the executive director execute that agreement for $9,700.
All right, so we have a proposal for a $300 increase because of the delay.
It's basically what it is. It supersedes the previous approval for the same work that was done the year October a year ago.
Wasn't their fault.
Yeah.
All right, so any questions on it?
No.
Need a motion to
I'll move that
accept
motion.
that resolution? All right, I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? So moved. Drop the contract. All right, and I need a motion to issue a request for qualifications for engineering services for Stillwater Dam breach analysis.
Right.
Contract C022012. Go ahead.
This is also a project that we're now bringing back from kind of the suspended status. A little bit of background. In October 2009, the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission provided recommendations to enhance the overall effectiveness of the emergency action plan for Stillwater Dam.
Okay.
And included in the recommendations was a review of the breach analysis and updating of the dam failure flood inundation mapping for the Stillwater Dam under the two scenarios, the sunny day scenario and a probable maximum flood scenario. And we, back in 2009, had provided a plan to the board and a schedule. At that time, it was the board's recommendation that we should review, and given all the other issues and circumstances at the time, we had not acted on that. The board had not acted on that recommendation of FERC. And then in June of last year, they restated their recommendation following and around the
So what's this for?
safety inspection.
Request for qualifications for engineering services?
So out of that, we need to hire a consultant in order to provide it. Very similar to what we have started and are approximately halfway through in the Hudson River side with Gomez and Sullivan for the Conklinville Dam. This consultant would look at a hypothetical failure scenario for the Stillwater Dam and route that flood wave downstream to the point where it no longer has an impact under a sunny day condition, which would be normal water surface elevation, no heavy precipitation event, and then a second scenario, which is a heavy precipitation event, basically a hurricane or a severe rainstorm on the heel of a heavy snowpack sometime in March, where you have a probable maximum runoff event which the reservoir would experience. And then they literally model a breach in the dam and determine the flow that comes out as a result of the breach and route that downstream to determine water surface elevations. So we need to hire a consultant to satisfy that requirement, and district staff is seeking authorization to request qualifications from engineers for that work.
Okay. All right, so I have to understand You keep mentioning FERC over here in the
Yeah.
Black River area.
No.
I've had my fill of FERC from the Hudson River area. What's our involvement with FERC? Do they just oversee all dam operations everywhere?
Well, they do with, it depends on the type of license, the Stillwater, the hydro, and the hydro facility here at Stillwater is exempt from licensing.
Okay.
And we hope to keep it that way.
We're going to keep it that way as long as I'm sitting here. But,
That being said, I mean, there's still a great deal of involvement by FERC, and
okay.
to be perfectly honest with you, there's almost no difference that we see, and for the most part, almost no difference that the exemptee, although we are co-exemptee too, actually, with Mercer on this project.
Okay.
There's almost no difference because of the height of the structure, the amount of the impoundment, and the threat to downstream reaches. Because of that, the Part 12 safety requirements of an otherwise licensed facility also apply to this
Okay.
facility.
I mean, I can understand that.
So we have to go through exactly the same process for emergency action plan,
Right.
annual inspection, the functional exercise every 5 years. We have an exercise of the emergency action plan,
Right.
and for all intents and purposes, it's the same in terms of dam safety as Conklinville. So the exception being is that it's called an exemption from licensing.
Yeah, very good.
Well, dam safety is very important, and
Yeah.
that's always going to be paramount
Right.
on our radar screen, but we still don't want the license.
No.
No, and it wouldn't be any different for us. I mean, we have applied, staff has applied the same approach that's used and recommended by FERC, which we use at Conklinville and we use at Stillwater for our smaller facilities.
So we're using their
We use it
standards.
at Indian Lake. We use the same process at Old Fork and Six Lake
Okay.
to develop breach and emergency action plans and breach analysis. So
We use their safety
it's an excellent set of standards.
Good. All right. So I need a motion to request qualifications for engineering services for the breach analysis. I have a
Mr.
motion.
Fedko?
Second.
All right.
Mr. Estes.
Stand a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? There we go.
Thank you.
Thanks. All right. Staff committee reports. Mr. Wilson?
It has not been a long time since I gave my last report, which was pretty detailed. Essentially, nothing has changed on our litigation effort, but I am available to answer any questions you may have.
You want to answer?
You said it was on the record already.
You can answer. Explain it.
Okay.
Update it.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I had asked Rob earlier before the meeting where we stood with the judge and the filed decision against the board of directors personally as far as liability, and he was filling me in on that. And if you
Let's see it on the record again if I could.
Yeah, sure.
Thanks.
Well, as you all know, on June 4th and June 6th, Fulton County and Hamilton County sued the regulating district with respect to unpaid taxes. 1.66 million for Fulton County and another 119,000 for Hamilton County. Judge Alisi issued a decision which made basically issued a judgment against the regulating district, but also in that judgment, or in the decision and judgment, articulated therein language which suggested that each of the board members is personally liable for that debt. Obviously, the newspapers picked that up, and you guys have been deflecting those concerns, I'm sure, as you go get your coffee in the morning. The Attorney General represents us in that matter, and the Executive Director and I accompanied the Attorney General to a appearance before the judge in chambers, where the judge essentially articulated for us that the decision should not be read such as to name each of the board members individually for the tax liability of the district. Judge offered to clarify his decision in writing, but also suggested that because of our difficulties getting the 5 counties to pay their bills on the Hudson River apportionment, that he would delay the effective date of that judgment until the end of September. In that time, we were to get an update to the judge with regard to the apportionment. We staff, the district, supplied the Attorney General with that update. And the last I knew, as of yesterday morning, was that the Attorney General was planning to have a conference call with the attorney representing Hamilton County, and I believe maybe Skip Spring from Fulton County, but I'm more sure that it was with Peter Barber from Hamilton County, to give those two gentlemen an update as to where we are with regard to the apportionment. Obviously, the September meeting, the board held the apportionment grievance hearing, and the 5 counties raised some concerns that we recommended the board take under advisement and make sure that we get the apportionment right. And that's basically the message that Harris Dade, the Assistant Attorney General, is going to convey to Skip Spring and Peter Barber. Those 3 gentlemen, Dade, Barber, and Spring, will then ensure that that message gets back to Judge Alisi. Judge Alisi will deal with that however he sees fit. Our position is basically there is no money in the district that can currently pay those taxes. The fastest way to get those taxes paid is to get the apportionment done and get the 5 counties to pay their portion of it. And the biggest impediment to that would be personal liability against a volunteer board who would basically resign. If you guys resign, then we don't have anybody to present the apportionment to. We can't fulfill the quorum requirement, and therefore the apportionment doesn't get done. If the apportionment doesn't get done, the 5 counties are never put on the hook to pay their bill. If they're never put on the hook, we'll never get the taxes paid. So, we're kind of catch-22. We can't suffer a judgment which creates undue hardship for the board. The board has already stated on numerous occasions that $1 from the revenues coming in from the apportionment will go to pay the tax obligation. It's my understanding we have that judgment against us. We also have another judgment against us from one of the hydropower companies in 2 respects. That one, the judgment by the hydropower company is on appeal, so we won't be paying that right away. And 2, when you weigh the 2 judgments, one against the other, the one judgment is basically to fulfill the needs of essentially the school districts. You've got kids who need teachers and teachers who need jobs, and this money goes to that purpose. It's a tax obligation.
Right.
We couldn't discharge it in any manner that we wanted to. The other is much more likely to be discharged if ultimately somebody decides that we're doing something completely different than we're doing now. So it's a long explanation to a relatively simple question, but we're waiting on Judge Alisi and I guess making every overture we can to put the judge at rest that as soon as we have the money available, it's our intention to pay those bills.
Thank you, Rob. I'd like to go on the record and say that I would hope that the judge keeps his word and delivers the letter post haste to this board. And I would also hope that, because in my opinion, the letter isn't anything that's legal, that he would write an addendum to his decision and have that filed. That's my feeling on it. With all due respect to the judge, he could get hit by a truck tomorrow and you got another judge and, you know, but he owes us that much. Thank you.
So that he hasn't issued that letter, huh?
To my knowledge, no, he has not yet issued that letter.
Do we know why? I mean, he said he was going to, and he just...
He did say he was going to.
He did say, I do not know why he has not issued it yet. My sense is that he is confident that his decision should not be read as to impinge upon any of you individually. And he was pretty adamant about that in our opportunity to speak to him.
Well, I'm not an English major by no sense of the word, but several people read it the same way, and some of these people are quite intelligent and have law degrees too. And so I respectfully would disagree with the judge's comments on that. I see no reason why the letter hasn't been written and delivered by now. I mean, if he's using it to strong arm us, it's not going to work, because it doesn't matter what happens. This board's going to continue to do what's best for the district and what's best for the taxpayers of the state, and we certainly are going to pay our obligations as soon as the money comes in. You know, it's been said more than once. So.
Well, we've never wavered from that.
I do think it's painfully evident to everybody that's involved in the Hudson River area that all of this hinges upon our receipt of assessments from the downstream beneficiaries, the 5 counties. If they didn't understand that before, they certainly do now.
Yeah.
And we let them all know that.
And we've made it perfectly clear, it's not a situation of our making.
True.
We're cleaning up somebody else's decisions. Okay. Any other questions, comments? No. Okay. Anything else?
No.
Thanks. That was a good explanation of it all. Okay. Fiscal officer.
Mr. Chairman, my report begins on page 26, ends on, I believe, 58, I believe.
Yep.
Just want to cover several points. In terms of available fund balances at the end of September 2012 for the Hudson River area and Black River area were approximately $411,000 and $223,000 respectively. On page 48 is my cash flow forecast. There's just a minor correction on that in terms of what it illustrates. My report says through August. It's in fact through the end of the fiscal year, which is June 2013. The forecast remains largely unchanged in terms of the fund's depletion point. The independent audit report that was provided in draft form to the board last month has now been finalized and is available on the district's website, and that is pursuant to public authority law that we have to do that. And bound copies, the fancy copies, if you will be provided at the December meeting where Randy Shepard, the audit partner with Bonadio, will present his findings to the audit committee. So we will have an audit committee meeting for December. A compliance reporting, and this relates somewhat to the independent audit report, the public authority data request, which is the largest informational request for all of the public authorities, was due at the end of September. I believe September ended on a Sunday, but that Friday prior to the Sunday, which I believe was the 28th, I did provide the entire report through the Public Authority Reporting Information System. That report does include the aforementioned independent audit. It includes the investment policy report, procurement policy, and just the debt-related information, and a lot of other sundry things. And I believe that is my abbreviated report. If the board has any questions, be happy to answer them.
No, I looked already, I didn't see anything. The question I had, Mike already answered. Any other questions? Thanks, sir. Okay, let's get into the engineering report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This report begins on page 59. And in summary, the precipitation in the Hudson River area, a little bit of an improvement over the previous few months.
It said no.
In the 90s, 90% of historic average at Indian Lake as well as Conklinville. So things are starting to look up in the month of September. As a result, we had both locations, Great Sacandaga Lake as well as Indian Lake Reservoir, 50 and 54% of historic average inflow, respectively. It's holding steady, if not improving a little bit. In the Black River area, Stillwater, Old Forge, and Six Lake had 87, 94, and 95% of historic average precip through September 24th. That too was an improvement over the previous few months. And we were also around 54% for historic average inflow at Stillwater Reservoir. If historic averages hold true, as we typically see both Indian Lake as well as Stillwater, these fall rains, which we are seeing a little bit more of now, will continue and should get rid of some of the deficit that we have in terms of elevation at both those reservoirs. It certainly would help with Sacandaga. We are actually about 1.4 feet below our target at Great Sacandaga Lake, about 3 feet low from our target at Stillwater, and about 2 feet low at Indian Lake. As I say, hopefully some of this fall rain will make up that deficit. But we continue to make releases, the minimum amount that's necessary in the Black River area, certainly to maintain the flow in the Black River and in the Beaver River. And as we have for most of the summer, operating at that 300 CFS release level, which is pretty much as low as we tend to like to go during this time of the year. And, in terms of operation for Old Forge and Six Lake, we're about ready this Friday to begin, the releases. Have to draw down the reservoirs, but also coincide with the river festival that they have, the rafting event. So we'll be providing a good chunk of water for them to raft on, beginning Friday afternoon and through the weekend, and then we'll scale back a little bit on those releases, but we continue to draw down both reservoirs, the Fulton Chinook Lakes, starting this weekend.
Okay.
Be happy to answer any questions you might have. Otherwise,
Any questions?
report.
Other than that, everybody's happy.
Other than that, other than the fact that I can't, and the district cannot make rain, yes.
I'll go on record. I was approached by two of the rafting companies up in North Creek, and they wanted me to thank you for the way you handled Indian Lake this summer.
Good,
They
glad to
said,
hear that.
Because of the fact that Abennaki's got its problems.
It does have some
They
difficulties.
really did appreciate the way you handled things.
Good,
And
good.
kept things going for them.
Glad to hear that. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Mr. Hudson?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My report starts on page 106. Again, short time frame between the two meetings. Last week, we started some riprap repair on the Sacandaga Lake by land using our equipment, using existing stone in the areas. We are now gearing up for our annual permit renewals to be sent out. The other thing is, like I've mentioned before, our workload at Sacandaga Field Office has not changed at all over the years. The only thing that has changed is the staffing. So a lot of times you'll see me out there with the maintenance specialist or field staff helping them out as we're shorthanded. I've also got assistance from our operations engineer from Albany to help us out with certain things. So we're plugging along with what we got at the best we can. And that's all I have right now. I'll be glad to answer any questions anybody may have.
No. I know the entire board appreciates the effort.
Thank you.
And I know it's not easy. We're doing the best we can.
Yep.
The cards we've been dealt. Any other questions? All right. Ms. Wright?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, thank you. My report will start on page 111, and first and foremost, the Black River area is pleased that we were able to host our board meeting back up here in Stillwater and that it could happen. And in saying that, we'd be happy to, sorry, I have allergies. Be happy to take you on a tour of our facility here, take you down to the dam after the meeting if anyone is interested. The staff is at your beck and call whenever you'd like to take the tour. Over the last few weeks, we have been gearing up for the fall-winter season, and you'll see that as you go along around in the area, I'm sure. We have the field superintendent and myself have been meeting regularly as a result of inspections that we had throughout the summer with DEC, with FERC, and with our chief engineer on different occasions. There have been different points of interest that we need to be monitoring. And so the field superintendent and I, myself, have created kind of an inspection worksheet that we're doing and setting up a monitoring system and a spreadsheet to keep that data on. So I think we're in pretty good shape. We also have done painting on the interior of now all of the gatehouses. The insides have all been ceilings, walls, floor at Stillwater. We're still doing Old Forge and Sixth Lake. The floors still need to be done there. In our Watertown office continues to support our field office, and I think we're in very good shape there, working on our website and taking care of our accounting. We do have a couple small special projects that we're doing in our Watertown office also. Any questions I'd be happy to answer.
We don't have to make any decisions on Hawkinsville, then you're just in the future doing.
No, we're in the process of advertising for the next phase of the study at Hawkins.
We continue to monitor issues
Yeah.
over there also.
I watch it every time I go by on the bridge. All right, any other questions? Okay, any questions or comments from the board about anything? Any more bids on the boat yet? This morning?
Could not connect, but the last
In case anybody's
count
interested
was
in-
12 bids, which was, somewhat surprising.
The workboat's up on eBay. And
Actually, Mr. Chairman, to that question, I have had a couple of conversations with the executive director from Lake George Park Commission, who is very interested in the workboat.
Just not paying for it.
Well, that's the $1 million question, of course, or $100,000 question.
yeah, we're not donating it.
They're looking, obviously they're interested in it. They have an invasive species problem. It's public and well-known, and they're looking at it as a platform to deal with that.
Really?
I think it really is.
And to that, for that purpose, it might excel. They have a different lake than we do, of course. It's more of a deep water situation all the way around. But I have had conversations. I don't know where that'll go, but I'll keep the board updated if there's any follow-on to that.
Okay.
Question. As far as the boat bid process, is there any state law or regulation out there that if a state agency would prefer to have it that supersedes private individuals or companies from bidding on it?
No, they're not general fund.
Okay.
No.
Just curious,
If-
that's all.
I believe there is with respect to
Within the,
general fund items. Fund assets which were purchased with general fund items. I don't believe an agency is supposed to sell such an item without giving a right of first refusal to any other agency of the state.
Just curious.
That's
you know,
not
so many
the case with
regulations
us.
and everything.
All right. Thanks. Any other questions? All right. Need a motion for the next board meeting to be held at the Washington County Municipal Center on November 7th, Wednesday.
That's in Fort Edward, Mr. Chairman.
Fort Edward. Okay. Yes. Need a motion for that?
So move.
Need a second?
Second.
Okay, motion second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right. We'll meet November 7th in Fort Edward. Need a motion for adjournment?
Make that motion. There you go.
Second.
No, one at a time.
I'll make it.
Hayes.
Hayes, one?
Mr. Astifan, second.
Mr. Rastafan said.
All right, all in favor? Aye. Opposed?